In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to change the entire way that you look at losing fat in your mitochondria. I'm going to change the entire way you look at proteins, you look at fats, and you look at carbs. I might even change the entire way you look at nutrient quality and calories. Imagine that you could prove that the quality of food matters more than the quantity. Imagine you could understand why sometimes you just can't lose weight. Imagine you could understand why sometimes you're gaining weight even though you're not eating more. Imagine you could explain why you have low energy someday, even though you slept like a rock the night before. It's because new science is showing that we're not just turning food into energy in a very systemized fashion. We're actually making our own energy in a completely different way. And the science is going to blow your mind, but you're going to have tools that you can implement, not just random scientific information that goes over your head. We're going to cover 4 things in this video today. Number 1, we're going to bust a giant myth surrounding the mitochondria. It's less a myth and more just what we're learning with modern science that mainstream hasn't necessarily caught up with yet. 2, I'm going to make you feel real smart, and we're going to talk about quantum physics, and you're going to learn some cool stuff that you can share with your friends. But we're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole, don't worry. Then 3, I'm going to teach you how you actually make water from your fat cells. That's a pretty cool thing, right? Turning fat into water. And 4, I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you how you can actually put this into application, because what good is the information if you can't adhere to something with it? So let's supercharge our fat loss, supercharge our mitochondria, and get some smarts in. Something that might help you out too if you're on a metabolic journey, you're trying to change your life, is something called Seed. It's a symbiotic. It's a prebiotic and a probiotic. I put a link down below. That's the only probiotic I've ever recommended on this channel. Literally because I think most probiotics are garbage. These guys actually do it right. They have the clinicals to back it up. They have the testimonials to back it up, and my own personal anecdotal experience, which has been nothing short of amazing with Seed Symbiotic. I feel completely different digestively, but also mentally, and things just seem to click. So if you're trying to kind of revamp your metabolism, revamp your gut health, absolutely, positively, that is a good place to start. So I put that link in the top line of the description. So as promised, the first thing we're going to cover is busting this myth. And this is going to flip everything on its head for you in a good way. We think the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell. It takes electrons, energy from our food, puts it through what's called the electron transport chain, and we ultimately create energy. And that's not incorrect, but that is kind of like 1960s version of the mitochondria. If we go a little bit deeper, and I can just blow your mind for just a moment, just to kind of keep you clicked in on this video, think about something interesting. The mitochondria have their own DNA. They're the only thing in our body, independent of like our own DNA, that has its own separate DNA. That kind of tells us that's very important, and it possibly is involved in some deeper, maybe even biology that is beyond our body. Like, why is the mitochondria having its own DNA? It's almost like it's its own separate life form. When you look at the science and you start understanding this stuff, you're like, wait a minute, the mitochondria is almost its own separate life form. It's wild. Here's 6 things that the mitochondria do that people don't realize right out the gate. 1, they sense information. They're like a little brain. They sense information. They receive signals from everything in our body, our nervous system, our muscles, our organs, our DNA. They receive signals constantly. 2, they regulate what are called redox reactions. I'll explain that a little bit later. They basically tune energy however we need it. 3, they actually emit light. They emit light and they respond to light. Okay, so they're not just creating fuel from food. They respond to light and they emit their own light. They respond to EMF that's created within our body, and possibly EMF that's in the atmosphere. They control apoptosis. What that means is that mitochondria actually control when other cells die. They also control oxidative stress. So if the mitochondria recognizes that we need more oxidative stress, or we're under load or whatever, it will attune that. And it also controls when genes express or don't express, meaning the mitochondria, our little metabolism, controls when genes do their certain thing to make us who we are. We are literally metabolic beings. But here's where the newer science is going to make your head spin and make you very excited and help you understand fat loss better. The new science is showing that our mitochondria are much more like batteries than factories. They are electrochemical regulators, and we've kind of known this. Basically, there's an inner membrane of a mitochondria, and that separates like 2 charges. And these 2 charges, this polarization, the ultimate gradient of energy or protons moving between these 2 places, is what creates energy. Mitochondria is like a battery because it has 2 charges. It holds more of a negative charge and a positive charge, and this energy sort of gradient is what allows energy to ultimately be created. So holding energy as two separate charges, that's what you would call a capacitor. The ability to regulate how much energy is moving within the mitochondria is like a transistor. And lastly, the ability to communicate with other cells and communicate with other things is like an oscillator. So if you have any experience with electricity, or maybe you're an electrician or you have an electrician in your life, they will tell you that this is pretty much how it works. And it does make sense. But what does that have to do with fat loss, Thomas? Get to the point. It's not necessarily about how much energy or calories we're cramming through this mitochondria. It's more about how can we efficiently allow it to create energy and move energy. And the way that we do that is by optimizing our mitochondrial efficiency. A little spoiler alert, and this isn't the full answer. I'm going to give you full details when we get to step 4, but things like fasting optimize the mitochondria. It's not always about calories. It's not always about the amount of food you're eating or keeping your metabolism moving. It's about optimizing the mitochondria to be a more efficient, better lithium-ion battery that creates a lot of energy, not just some Duracell alkaline piece of garbage. Now I'm going to move into some quantum physics that I can teach you that's going to blow your friends' minds. You're going to sound like the smartest person in the room, and they'll probably ask you to leave because they'll just think that you're trying to show off. Quantum tunneling. Have I lost my mind yet? Have you unsubscribed again? Well, just hear me out, because everyone thought that Albert Einstein was crazy for a little while too. Okay, here's the definition of quantum tunneling. Quantum tunneling is a quantum mechanical phenomenon in which an object such as an electron or an atom passes through a potential energy barrier that, according to classical mechanics, should not be passable due to the object not having sufficient energy to pass or surmount the barrier. So basically, it's the ability for energy to, or proton to like move somewhere that it shouldn't be able to move, like faster than traditional physics would say it could. But what does this have to do with you and your fat loss and not being able to lose weight? When our mitochondria are manufacturing energy, electrons are moving from one place to another. They go down 4 different complexes. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, called redox stages. Okay, when they move to these different stages, these complexes, what we thought was just the main thing is each time an electron would move, it would create like a little explosion, boom, a little explosion, and that's like harnessed energy or electrons, right? Okay, but what we're seeing now is that there's actually this place where electrons move from one stage to another at a speed and a distance that is physically impossible, okay? It's like if I told you, I want you to throw this baseball 400 yards, and you just say, that's not possible. With quantum tunneling, it is. And I'm going to get into some 2022 science here in just a minute that was presented at Scientific Reports. It's quite wild. Basically, what we're finding is that our mitochondria can quantum tunnel and actually tune the overall energy in the mitochondria to allow things to defy physics. There is a quantum level of instant energy happening in our mitochondria. It's telling us almost that there is, for lack of a better way of saying it, another dimension we're not aware of that's allowing energy to move at a quantum level. But before you turn off this video and think I've finally lost it, keep listening, because I'm going to teach you how this all makes sense, and I think it'll all click. One of the most important, if not the most important attribute to our mitochondria is something that is called the proton motive force. And this is the part that you're going to be able to share with your friends. The proton motive force is where electrons pump protons into the intermembrane space. What that means is we're moving what are called protons from one place to another, essentially hydrogen. Okay, so if we know about batteries, right, there's a lot of people looking at the market with like hydrogen cell batteries and hydrogen. Okay, hydrogen is very important for this proton motive force. So basically what's happening is you're moving protons from one area within the mitochondria to another across a membrane. That's called a gradient. But what happens? Here's what's super cool. Okay, when those protons move across this gradient, across this membrane, they move through this little pinwheel, this little flywheel. That's called ATP synthase. It is the protons that move through this flywheel, okay, between the membranes that spin this flywheel. The energy from that flywheel spinning is where we get ATP. That's called ATP synthase. And that's somewhat basic mitochondria, but I don't expect on YouTube everyone to know that. Our energy is created by this little like almost hydroelectric dam-like thing that's just spinning, this turbine that's spinning. Some of the things we've learned about this ATP synthase is that it spins at a ridiculous speed, almost unfathomable speed. and it moves through an area that is almost quite literally is even impossible for a proton to fit through. So the science that was presented in 2022 as scientific reports shows that these protons don't just move through in a mechanical way. They teleport. Quantum teleportation, quantum tunneling. The protons move at a level and a degree that is not measurable. They are quite literally using quantum energy. And what that tells us is that it is about the health and the vitality of our mitochondria for energy stability. Because what we've seen now is that those mitochondria do not have the ability to do this without this quantum energy, without this quantum tunneling. Because without this whole process would be too slow. It would leak energy and it literally would not create enough ATP to sustain itself. And we would end up fatigued. We would end up ultimately sick, and we would end up with a dysfunctional metabolism. Does that sound familiar? How many people, what percentage of the population is dealing with metabolic dysfunction? Over 93% to some degree have some level of metabolic dysfunction. We are ruining the core energy within our body, not just the ability to process carbs, fat, protein. It's not just about insulin resistance. It's about this deeply rooted issue. And we need to understand how we manage it. And we're going to get to that again when I get to step 4, because all of this groundwork has to be laid first. I know this is a lot. I promised you I'd tell you how you turn fat cells into water, because it is part of this whole process. And this goes into a little bit of woo-woo stuff. Maybe not woo-woo, but fringe. Dr. Gerald Pollack, who he's been scrutinized for some things, but one thing that is not any question whatsoever is that we make metabolic water. We make water. So what happens is when we burn fat, when we oxidize fat, that fat is broken down into these triglycerides. These triglycerides are then chopped up into these different acetyl coenzyme A, these different compounds. They go through what's called the Krebs cycle. After they go through the Krebs cycle, they go through the electron transport chain within our mitochondria, where the final recipient is oxygen. So this oxygen is the final electron receptor, which then combines with protons, which are hydrogen. Hydrogen and oxygen makes what? Water. So when we break down fat, when we oxidize fat, a metabolic byproduct is literally water. I'm not saying don't drink water, but I am saying, like, when you're fasting, when you're lower carb, when you're exercising and you're oxidizing fat, you're actually creating water as a byproduct. And why is this? Because water is the medium in which we hold a charge. So remember all this electrical stuff that I was talking about in the mitochondria? Okay, so your mitochondria is a battery, and you have water on the inside and water on the outside. Dr. Gerald Pollack talks about how that water that we create in our body, and water we hydrate with, of course, but that water, that pure metabolic water, that becomes structured in such a way where it can be negatively charged. And you don't need to understand all this. You just need to understand the basics. So we have negatively charged water and positively charged water on the other side. This is the medium in which the charge can actually be held. So fat loss, fat oxidation is critical for maintaining the healthy metabolic water that is like the cells within the battery, those battery cells. Is your mind blown yet? Are you seeing the importance of taking a break from food now and then and allowing your body to tap into fat storage? Are you seeing the importance of maybe keeping insulin levels a little bit lower sometimes? Are you seeing the importance of exercise? Are you seeing the importance of a caloric deficit to put yourself into these states of fatty acid oxidation? Are you seeing the importance of training your mitochondria to use fats and carbs so that's efficient across all domains? If we maintain this healthy mitochondria and we have a good degree of fat oxidation, a mitochondria goes through mitochondrial biogenesis and we create more of them. More mitochondria equals more batteries. It doesn't just equal more places to manufacture energy for food. It equals more places to hold energy and produce energy and literally give us quantum energy, which is, I can't even fathom all the stuff that's going on. It's insane. One other seemingly insane thing that scientists are starting to uncover, and Dr. Gerald Pollack really looked at this a lot, is the fact that light, red light, infrared light, this impacts our mitochondria. It impacts the water. It changes the structure of the water. Now, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. The point is that if anyone ever tries to tell you that our mitochondria do not respond to light and that we are not photosynthetic creatures, I could give you about 300 studies that show you right out the gate that that is absolutely the way it is. Our mitochondria do respond to light and they emit light. I'm going to rest my case there. I'm not going to go into crazy detail. If you want to see that stuff, I can point you in that direction. Point is, water and light make a difference. So what do we actually do? I'm going to give you the playbook right now. And just to recap, we've learned that the mitochondria is not just the powerhouse. Okay? We have learned that the mitochondria don't just create energy, they hold energy and they pull energy, and they create essentially almost infinite energy in a way. We've learned that we turn fat into water that actually helps this process happen. So we've learned that fat burning is important. Now, what do we actually do? Number one, we need to optimize for nutrient quality. Gone are the days where we just think about calories. I am seeing more and more and more people turning a new leaf on this and saying, yes, calories are maybe second most important. I understand we say they are first important because of the basics and helping people understand eat less, move more. I get it. I'm not discounting that. I am a little bit, but I'm saying there's more to it. That is in the passenger seat. The first seat is healthy mitochondria and nutrient quality. Basically, get a lot of good quality nutrients, eat a lot of good quality food, and move a lot and keep that engine going. It's called G-Flux. Eat more, move more, but don't eat more McDonald's. Eat more good quality food. Eat more good quality ground beef, good quality chicken, good quality fruit if you want to. Okay, we'll get into that. Second up, we need to optimize for fat oxidation. That means we need to take breaks from food. We need to try to go 12 hours between dinner and breakfast. We need to do metabolic mini fasts. That means even if you don't like to intermittent fast, take a day and skip lunch one day. Eat breakfast and then eat dinner. The science behind these metabolic microfasts is actually quite good. It allows that mitochondria, allows for glucose excursion to be better. Overall, you are helping your mitochondria. You need to allow them to become efficient at using fuels differently, and you need to be oxidizing fat now and then so that you can make that metabolic water, so that you can encourage the mitochondria to go through this biogenesis and make more of that. If you don't want to do that, or even if you do, periodic low carb and low insulin states. Why? Because once again, this activates PGC1A. This is mitochondrial biogenesis. You can also have low energy states. Exercise in a fasted or low energy state. Try to get your body to tap in to those low energy systems where it upregulates systems and processes to make more mitochondria because it senses, hey, this person's not enabled by a bunch of food right now. Let's do what we can to create energy without it. Things like bee pollen, things that are rich in B vitamins. So beef liver, beef in general, okay, good quality meat. B vitamins are the cofactors for this whole redox state. So for the mitochondria to be able to manage how much energy is moving, it needs B vitamins. Okay, so just B vitamin supplement, whatever, just go for good quality B vitamins. Predominantly food that's rich in B vitamins. Number 4 is good quality saturated fats. This is critical for membrane stability. You need membrane stability so that that membrane doesn't become floppy and wonky so that you can have a strong proton gradient, okay? If that membrane is weak because you don't get enough good quality saturated fat, that's gonna be a leaky process, okay? That membrane isn't gonna hold it's not gonna hold the charge right, okay? So does that mean you pound saturated fat? No, it just means be making a concerted effort to get good quality saturated fat. Don't go crazy overboard, and certainly don't combine it with sugar. Saturated fat is not the biggest issue. It's a bigger issue when it's combined in a high calorie, high sugar state. Number 5, protein for structure. We need that structure. The mitochondria is made up of significant amounts of folding and unfolding of proteins. Bottom line is, we know that protein's important. Protein's going to preserve our muscle. Protein's going to make it so that that muscle can hold more mitochondria. Have as much protein as you can in the morning to meet your protein goals. I'm less concerned with you having protein later in the day. I want it earlier in the day or with your earlier meal, whenever that is, if you're fasting or whatever. Try to capitalize on that. Number 6, please take a magnesium supplement. Magnesium is critical for the membrane potential, okay, for this whole process of creating energy. So what we're learning with all of this is that we actually create energy from minerals. Minerals are an energy source for us because they allow these processes to occur. And 2 of the most important ones are copper and magnesium. Copper, you could take a supplement. You could also eat foods that are rich in copper. Okay, Things like shellfish, certain other things that might have more copper in them as zinc. These are important for the electrical system, but too much copper can be problematic too. So I don't recommend just taking a ton of copper supplementation. Eat foods that are rich in copper. Do a quick Google search or ChatGPT it. I don't want to waste your time, but take a magnesium supplement and take one like a dimagnesium malate that digests or breaks down a little slower. Number 7, non-caloric things do impact energy. Calories matter. If you eat too much, you will probably gain weight and gain fat. That's the way that it works. Yes, but it's not just because of the calories. A lot of times it's because of the inflammatory state and the overabundance of energy that's making it hard for the mitochondria to function. That being said, take a multivitamin, take a multimineral, get your electrolytes in. If you are feeling low energy, it might not be that you just need to eat. It might be that you need some electrolytes. Number 8, and a big important one, adequate calories. It's the opposite of what you might think. Eat good quality food and eat a lot of it, because these electrons are what allow this to happen. If you don't have all the electrons coming in from the food, then this whole process does crumble. Eventually, if you don't eat, you'll end up breaking down. But where people get confused is that they feel like they need to just reduce calories all the time. You need to think of this as an on and off switch. Periods of time off so that your mitochondria can get stronger, and periods of time on so you provide the electron. It doesn't just end in a few hours. You could eat a bunch on Monday and then fast on Tuesday and you'll have plenty of energy. Okay, those electrons are going to do what they need to do, and our body has abilities to store it, whether it's through fat, through glycogen, through maybe even means we don't understand. So in this video, you've learned a lot, but I also have some other videos that break down the more intricacies of fasting and how to use it properly. One in particular talks about a way that you can fast that actually reduces visceral fat, which could reduce inflammation, which is a very interesting thing. So I put that video right here. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.